Kerry.
I think it's a question for Andrea, just a point of clarification. She spoke about engaging family and small businesses in the whole agenda of work placements. I've just wondered if you could talk a little bit more. Talk a little bit more about that. I wasn't clear if that was in the context of them taking in students on work placements, or they themselves getting involved in perhaps partnering with institutions on innovative activities, or just what she meant by that, and she made examples maybe of where that happens.
So we'll hold that. Lewis, and then Kevin O'Rourke up at the back. So we'll take 3 questions together. The first one is on SMEs.
It's a question about the sort of the regionalisation that Andrea and other speakers addressed, and I wonder if there's any particularly good models out there. We seem to make a hash of regionalisation every time we look at it, because every government body that thinks about regionalisation has a different region in mind and different constellations, and whether there's any particular model, theoretical or practical, that we should look towards, which would help us align all the multiple regions that multiple stakeholders have in their different compartments of their lives.
Okay, now can you see if you can throw as well as you can catch up to Kevin back there? We'll take Kevin's question and we'll come back to first two to Andrea. Yes,
great. Again, it's going to be for Andrea actually. Kevin O'Rourke, I work with the National Forum, and it's interesting if the role that you were suggesting for the National Forum as an umbrella function for developing initiatives in entrepreneurship education, is that purely by, I suppose, enhancing and encouraging a lot of the current initiatives that you spoke of, e-portfolios, etc., or indeed if there's other things that they have in mind in that area?
Okay, thank you. So SMEs, regional governance arrangements, and the National Forum.
Okay, I think maybe the second question I will maybe also answer together with Helena. So the first one on the SME placements. Now we developed this point further because of the reactions we heard about the placement of international students. So I think it was one of the HEIs, I can't remember now which one it was, but they had tried several routes of placing more international students into local firms, most of which were family-based and small firms, so the local SMEs. And so there was, from the firm side, there was always this reluctance, of saying, okay, we don't understand why we should take up these people, because they stay for a certain amount of time and then they leave, and we don't know what we gain from this. And so we picked this up early on in our study visit. So we also asked, in the other HEIs, we asked them, how do you deal with your partners for work-based learning, and who are your partners? And so it came out that most of the partners were, in fact, larger firms. Some of them were multinational corporations, which I think is also supported by some of the recent surveys that you have on university business collaboration. And so the suggestion that we put forward here is to increase the awareness raising or the awareness raising activities with these firms on the benefits and the obligations of work-based learning. And so very often I think work-based learning is a starting point to develop things further. Now I think as a precondition to develop things further would be that also how work-based learning is organized in the higher education institution is linked with potential follow-up activities. So you would not have separate units contacting or separate individuals contacting work-based learning operators or supporters or partners, but you would combine this. Okay, that was the first point. But we found this out by looking into the work placements for international students, and I think I mentioned this also in my opening remarks. that this is also part of, when we look at the impact of entrepreneurial and innovative higher education institutions, it's actually also how they change the organization of the firms they collaborate with. Okay, the second point on regions, I would then answer this last and ask also Helena to support me in this. And the National Forum. Yeah, the National Forum, I think, is a very good platform to bring different things together. In the past, you had several networks which supported entrepreneurship education. I think it was also created from a research-driven, entrepreneurship research-driven group of people. And in fact, also, as we saw now with the presentation of Paul, it's not really about teaching and learning that is directed towards venture creation, directed towards being entrepreneurial in terms of setting up a new business, setting up something new that creates value. I think the last point, setting up something new that creates value is perhaps related to this. But it's actually about bringing change into teaching and learning. And so the National Forum is about this. So I think building more bridges to get the existing networks and the existing champions you have on entrepreneurship under the umbrella of the forum would actually make a lot of sense. Now, the regions, I think a point that we very strongly underline in the report, and it's also in the executive summary that we made available for this session today, is that you don't have a one-size-fits-all, even if you want to have it for certain policy or political reasons. Now, it makes obviously sense to bring different higher education institutions which had already links in the past, which are also related because of their geographical position, because of their links to their partners, etc., to bring them into a framework. And this happened. Now, if the aim of the framework is to move beyond pathways and program alignment towards creating knowledge regions, then, you have to bring in the different actors, relevant actors that exist for this. I think that means lunch, huh? Okay, maybe we convene afterwards.
She was suitably embarrassed.
Okay, but I think the point I want to underline here is we I wonder what this was. Okay, no one size fits all, and I think the second point is that the regional skills fora, which are now emerging, they need to be, linked with the regional clusters. A lot of efforts and a lot of funding has flown into this, so I think it's about to make the best use of it. Helena, if you want to say something, or you don't want to risk that we are getting the interference.
No, I think you have said it all.
I have one question for Paul. You referenced, I don't know whether it was tongue-in-cheek or you were being true about making mistakes in England about the myths here. The one that I can think of is the attempts at the e-university model there about 10 years ago of trying to put everything into e-learning. What would if you were saying to Ireland, don't do this, this and this, what would those 2 or 3 things be?
So I think it's so certainly the first one is the danger of getting very hung up on individual teaching prizes. So we have a national teaching fellowship scheme in the UK that initially started out with a lot of money and gradually got less. But this real focus on individual teaching rather than teams who come together and create experiences for students collectively, I think is one of the really big mistakes. The other part that sort of fits with this is the contagion model of change. What you want is, you want a few good pilots within an institution, you want to fund them really well, and then they'll change the rest of the institution. It just doesn't work. You know, one of the essential things that's lacked, me and some colleagues did a review of the teaching enhancement initiatives in the UK, and one of the key things they lacked was a theory of change to underpin those approaches. And one of the key issues is that it doesn't scale up. Changing teaching at an institutional level is not the same as changing teaching on a national level. And actually, if you're going to transform teaching and enhance teaching on a national level, you need to start at that level and think about what systems you create in order to encourage groups of teachers, collective groups of institutions, to develop things that suit the sector as a whole, rather than always going back to the level of individual teacher and trying to think, okay, how do we make people want to be really good teachers? It's to me, it's essentially a category error that you think that, you know, it's methodological individualism, that if we work out what works for the individual, then actually we can scale it up to the level of the sector. Whereas actually, it's a qualitatively different level. And if you want to improve teaching across the sector, or you want to introduce entrepreneurial teaching across the sector, that's a different question to how you introduce it within an institution. I just think it's a different scale of question.
Okay, thank you very much.